against your home. The enemy came up against your children. The enemy came up against your name. The enemy came up against your character. You will win, win. You will win, win. The enemy came up against your health. The enemy came up against your finances. The enemy came up against your vision. The enemy came up against your business. You will win. Oh, you will win. Yes, you will.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for another session of the We the Women. We have an amazing guest today that I know you guys will be so happy to hear from, so engaged. She is super engaging and is so vibrant. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from her today. Just another way to continue the celebration for International Women's Month. So we will have Kelly Galanis, our Director of Operations and Donors Relations, who will be moderating this session today. And she will also be formally introducing our guest speaker today, but she is the Chief Executive Vice President and second in command at the Caring Health Center here in the city of Springfield. She is also a financial change agent, a life coach, and so many other things. So I will formally shift this event over to Kelly so that she can formally introduce our guest speaker and we could get going with the session for today.
Thank you so much, Lydia. Welcome, everybody, and welcome, Jasmine. I'm very honored to have the ability to chat with you today. So very much looking forward to this. But first, of course, official introduction. Jasmine Naylor is a spending strategist, wealth expert, and author known as the Spitfire Financial Change Agent, a master in teaching the art of living wealthy through prioritization, boundaries, and accountability. This former teen mom and self-proclaimed poverty princess turned her lemons into lemonade and her passion for people's progress into an enterprise focused on purposefully changing lives. Jasmine specializes in working with brave, bold believers who are ready to change now. She helps women build wealth so they can leave a legacy, live life, and sip their own lemonade on the beach. As the chairwoman of JN University, Jasmine has cultivated courses, events, and results-based coaching programs that equip high-achieving women with the tools needed to manage and multiply money God's way. Her signature programs include Wealthy Women Live Wealthy, Prioritization and Profitability, and Clear and Confident. Jasmine has worked with an array of directors, CEOs, executives, and startups with backgrounds in healthcare, marketing, music, teaching, counseling, government, aerospace, real estate, religion, human services, and more, financially flourish. Using the power of belief to surpass teen mom stereotypes, Jasmine, who is also a presidential scholar and former alumni of the year, graduated summa cum laude from Bay Path University with honors and distinction. She holds multiple degrees, including a bachelor's of business administration, a master's of business administration, and a master's of nonprofit management and philanthropy. She obtained her master's degrees for free and was actually paid $20,000 for successful completion. Jasmine is married to her high school sweetheart of 15 years and has 3 amazingly down-to-earth children, ages 18, 15, and 8, who teach her every day what it means to truly live wealthy. Currently, Jasmine holds the title of Chief Executive Vice President, second in command, at a community health center in Springfield, Mass., with 8 locations, overseeing $25 to $200 million budgets, impacting 50,000 patients and managing 300 employees. She is devoted to helping women build bigger, spend wiser, and live wealthier. And her philosophy is change should always make sense. It is truly a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And yay, Bay Path. I am an alum there as well.
Oh, hey now.
So let's start out. Can you tell us 2 things that you would want people to know about you?
2 things I'd like people to know about me is I'm really down to earth, and I don't like people to allow my titles to put separation between us. So literally, I'll talk to any and everybody. I don't care what position you hold. You've got a question, I'll answer it. And if you want to have a conversation, I'll definitely have one. So that would be the 2 things I'd say.
That's perfect. Great. Can you take us through the trajectory to where you are today, your current position? Because I know you have a few of them. So tell us the story. How did you get to where you are?
Definitely. So I was born and raised in Springfield, and I went to the Springfield Public School Systems. And right around my junior year, my parents moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, and I finished high school out there. I finished half my junior year and my senior year. From there, I ended up applying for colleges, and this is an interesting story too, right? I applied for college. I did the whole college process myself, the FAFSA and everything, and I literally picked colleges using FastWeb. Do people remember FastWeb back in the day? Literally, I went through the listing looking at schools to go through, and I actually started at Ithaca College in New York. And so I picked Ithaca because they gave me a free ride. So, you know, the history and my financial background comes from being way young. So I ended up going to Ithaca College, and my husband ended up coming to Ithaca College too, but he wasn't a student. But nonetheless, I ended up leaving Ithaca and transferring to Bay Path because I had a son in between those years. And that's how I landed at Bay Path. And then the degree that I picked was business. And again, I feel like it was like a divine thing. I literally opened the pamphlet and was looking at all the things that I could pursue. And I said, and I read the description. So shout out to Ithaca for having dope descriptions for what you could do. And it seemed like it fit. It seemed like everything that was up my alley. So I picked business. And then I transferred that over to Bay Path and continued in business. And luckily, thank God, I actually liked business and I stuck with it. And so I finished out at Bay Path. I got my bachelor's degree. I became an intern through Inroads, which is a program, a nonprofit that helps minority talented youth get into corporate America. And that opened the door for me to work in corporate America at United Technologies, formerly Hamilton Sunstrand, and they changed name 3 times or 4 times by now. I don't remember what their name is today. But nonetheless, I ended up at corporate America for about 11 years. And I did aerospace and some engineering work, customer service, working with everybody around the globe in the aerospace industry. And then at one point, an opportunity presented itself. So United Technologies would pay for your entire master's degrees, and they used to not have a cap on it. Now they have a cap on it. So I ended up pursuing my master's because they were going to pay for it and literally pay for it and give you money when you completed it. They would give you $10K in stock options. So I decided to go back and get my MBA. I took about a couple years off between finishing my bachelor's and my master's. And when I proceeded to get my MBA, that's where I bumped into my current boss. So the first day we met was like the first day of classes, and we're waiting in the little lobby area at Bay Path University. And I can overhear her talking to some other students, and the other students were telling her, oh, you're in the 1-year program. Everybody drops out of the 1-year program. That is too complicated to do in 1 year. And so I overheard this conversation. I walked over to her and was like, listen, I'm in the 1-year program. You're in the 1-year program. We're about to finish this in 1 year. Don't listen to what they have to say. Sure enough, we finished in 1 year, and that was before she was the CEO. So she had always mentioned to me, I'd love if you could come work at Caring Health Center. You know, I'm being groomed to be the CEO. It'll take me some time to, you know, make things happen. And at that point, I was loving United Technologies, and I told her, you know what, you know, maybe I'll come to Caring Health Center, but right now I don't have any interest in leaving United Technologies. They're treating me very well. In fact, they're paying for this degree and paying me after I finish it. So I kind of brushed it off, but we built a really great relationship, and we stood in contact over the years. And so when we finished our MBA, I stood on for another year to get my master's in nonprofit management and philanthropy, because UTC was changing their rules, and I was grandfathered into being able to get that second degree and get paid. So that's what I did. I stood on because I do a lot of nonprofit work as well. So fast forward, that's over. I'm still at UTC. I decided that, you know, at some point, I felt like it was time for a change, and I wanted to make more of a difference. And I had a few jobs lined up, and me and my current boss met before she was my boss, and we would stay in touch every quarter. And we touched base one time over lunch, and I was telling her, you know, I'm ready for a change. I've got these three jobs lined up for United Technologies, but I'm concerned because I think they're going to bore me in a year and a half. And, you know, I'm not really the best employee if I'm bored with my work. And, you know, maybe it's time for me to venture out. And so literally she said, you know what? That's music to my ears. I've been waiting for you to say this, because she had offered me like a grants position before and had said something else in between these years. And I was like, nope, I'm not coming for grant writing. That's not something that Jasmine is going to do. So nonetheless, at that point, she let me know I have my second in command position opening up as the VP. Is this something you'd be interested in? So literally that is how I ended up at Caring Health Center as the VP here, second in command. And then go a little bit further, how I ended up with J&E, which is Jasmine Naylor Enterprise, is I'm working at Caring Health Center. I'm having a great time here. She had shared a course with me called Think and Grow Rich. And we had done a couple of different types of courses together in the financial realm, but something was different about that course. And that course really had me thinking deeper as to what else is there? What else can I do? What else can my gifts allow me to do? And so, you know, with a lot of prayer and thought, J&E was birthed. And that was really to help people manage and multiply money God's way, because that's really the number one thing people are focused on every single day is getting money, keeping money, saving money, trying to find money. And I have a knack for that. So that's how I ended up at this moment.
That's a wonderful story. I love it. And I have to tell you, also 1 year program.
Yes.
I can't believe people actually think people don't finish that. I think it's the best thing ever. So.
We were the only two in that whole cohort.
Oh my gosh, no. Good job, guys. Really. That's great.
Thank you.
So you kind of talked about this a little bit, but just to recap, when you began your career many, many years ago, back, you know, even right after at Hamilton Stunstrand, or whatever we want to call it for today, did you ever imagine that you would be where you are at today?
I don't think I did at this point. I knew I would have real estate, because that's another side, another business lane that we have is I'm a real estate investor with my husband. So I always knew I would have real estate. I always knew I'd have multifamilies as a part of whatever, you know, portfolio that I had. But when it came to executive leadership, I don't necessarily think that I ever thought that would be it. But the one thing that I did know growing up, and I would tell people, is I don't want to be known for one thing. I don't want to have a career of 30, 40, 50 years in one lane. I want to have the freedom to go into whatever lane I want to go into and carve my own path and be successful. So I think I've done that being in aerospace and then transitioning into healthcare. And something about healthcare too is I don't have healthcare experience. I'm approaching my 6th year in healthcare, and I think I've done pretty well with the teams that I've worked with at Caring Health Center. We've done marvelous. We've survived a pandemic. In fact, we've thrived in a pandemic. We've put up vaccination sites in-house and out-house. We've done tremendous things together. So I think I'm living that out now. The one thing that was what I thought I would do was real estate, and we're continuing to do that. So I think that would be the only thing that I know or knew that I would do.
That's great. That's awesome. So from what you've told us, it sounds like you have a lot of experience in various places, whether healthcare or not. Definitely you're doing well, and you definitely know about your leadership style and skill. So can you tell us what you think 3 important characteristics of a good leader are?
For me, I would say you have to be willing to always change, meaning the essence of who you are can remain the same. However, you are never in your best version or form. So you have to be open to being willing to change to the environment that you're in and the things that you pick up along the way. So the leader I was 5 years ago, I would say the essence of who I am is the same, but I'm totally different from 5 years ago because I have 5 years of more experience, 5 years of rubbing shoulders with all sorts of different people. And the second thing I would say when it comes to changing, be okay picking up the best practices from other people that you admire or that you see great things in. So I work with some really incredible people, and there are certain attributes that I love and admire in them, and I look to pick up and put into my toolbox. So the way people might handle challenging situations, if I see somebody doing something a way that I wish I could do it that way, well, I start picking it up and practicing it. The third thing that I would say for a leader would be make sure you're always willing and open to take feedback. And it's connected to the other 3 things, but I think it's key. And something I like to do is I like to know where my blind spots are because I want to improve on them. I want to make sure that I can be the best leader that I can be. And I know the leader that I am today is just one version, and I'm trying to get to the next more refined version. So being open to that and making space for people to tell you what those areas are. So in my life, you know, I've led a bunch of people in the healthcare realm at my job. And one in particular, someone shared with me was, you know, Jasmine, I'm the type of person that I need praise and appreciation. And so that caught me off guard because I'm a natural go-getter and I don't necessarily need a lot of praise and appreciation, but we all need it. It's a natural thing that we should get. So that person really made me challenge myself to become a leader that can give praise and appreciation freely and not expect people to be my type of style. And I know that I've gotten totally better than I was when I first walked into Caring Health Center. So those would be my 3 things.
Those are great things. And I just want to pull in a comment. Denise Hurst shares that your Money Mondays are awesome. So,
oh, thanks, Denise.
Cool. So we're going to continue on the leadership track here. So as a female leader, can you talk about some of the significant barriers that you've faced in your career?
Yeah, so I could tell you 2 quick barriers, one in corporate, one in the nonprofit realm. So in corporate, there was one time that I was going for a leadership position, and it was right before I got this position that I'm in now. And it was the leadership position of the department that I was in. And I had interviewed for it, but in the interview, I already knew that my direct supervisor wasn't feeling me for that particular role. And that was like a second supervisor that I had gotten. The original one, we had a totally different relationship. But nonetheless, I knew instantly that this position, I wasn't going to get the position because there were just certain statements that were said. For instance, I don't see, Jasmine, how you're going to be able to be a leader of this department and also be a real estate investor. I don't see how you can do both of those things with all of the responsibilities that you have in that realm. So nonetheless, lo and behold, I didn't get that position, right? And it was offered to someone that I had actually trained that had come into the department after me. A lot of people went for that position too. A lot of people I trained for that position. The one that got it, I wasn't upset about, right? So it was like, great, that's a compliment to me. Whether I get this position or not, I trained this person. So I know that they can do this job. A lot of other people were salty because they didn't get the position and they started being negative. I just understood that position wasn't for me and it wasn't designed for me to have it. And I was just prepared for whatever the next role was. And lo and behold, the next role was the VP of a community health center. So to me, that was a challenge because knowing that somebody isn't for you, but yet they are your leader, and still having grace and poise and respect and still honoring the person that gets a position that maybe you wanted, but it wasn't your time, I think it speaks volumes. The other thing that I'll say is I've worked with someone else too in a certain space, and sometimes people are intimidated by your intelligence, or they're intimidated by the progress that you might be bringing, and they might put roadblocks and barriers in your way. And sometimes you might have to work with narcissistic people, and I've had some experiences like that. And sometimes it takes some time to realize, hold on a second, what's happened? I know I'm not crazy. Like, is something wrong with this person? Like, this they make the rules up as they go. They have some rules that apply to them, but it doesn't apply to everybody else. And like they're talking behind my back, or they're trying to set booby traps up against me. Nonetheless, I think for me, maintaining poise, maintaining respect, maintaining what I like to say is, I always feel that whatever barrier I'm experiencing, it must be because somebody needs to see me go through this with a level of grace they've never seen somebody else go through it. Because I've been through some situations that you might want to cut up at somebody for the way they treating you, but you keep it together, you keep it classy, and you show people the way. Like, you don't have to cut up, you don't have to lose the essence of who you are because somebody else is mistreating you.
We definitely have all been there, and you handle it well. That's great. So what do you think would be, or what do you believe the greatest quality one must possess to be able to inspire others?
Consistency. I think consistency is extremely important. It's easy for some people to be a success in one thing, and it's hard for people to be a success continuously. And I think the difference that separates people that are the one and done successes is lacking consistency. So if you can remain consistent, even in the small things, people like, a lot of people tell me, I want $1 million, but if you can't manage the 10,000 that's in your hands, why should you have 1,000,000? You're going to blow it just like the 10,000. Like, you got to be consistent with the small things before you can get the big things. So to me, consistency is the biggest key.
Awesome. So I think I might know the answer to this next question, but we're going to ask it. Who inspired you and why? And did you have a woman leader as a mentor?
So yeah, who I would say inspired me, I think would be my mom. My mom was a teen mom, and she had 3 children by the time she was, I want to say 18 or 19. And we had different fathers. And the reason she inspired me, because she had an upward hill battle, that alone by itself, and you titrate those things on top of one another. She had a hard road to walk, and to do that as a single mother for a number of years, raising 3 kids, a baby herself, and trying to figure this thing out. And the reason I say she's really the one that is my role model, the one I look up to, is because no matter what she didn't have, she always tried to provide the best with what she did have. And we never lacked for anything, yet we lacked, but we didn't know we were lacking. If you ask, I had a great childhood. I enjoyed running around the neighborhood without shoes. Nowadays, I can't stand my kids without shoes running around. But I had a great time. I thought my community was incredible. Granted, we were exposed to some very traumatic experiences growing up in the neighborhood that we were in, but it seemed normal, even though it was abnormal. But nonetheless, she did the best that she could to get us out of that atmosphere and provide stability. She was the stable one. And I shared this on my business platform the other day. I was thinking back to her when it came to the power of prayer. And so she always tells me and has reminded me, before I was born, when I was inside of her stomach, she was living in New Haven, Connecticut, and she would walk the campus of Yale. And her prayer would be that my life would be different, that I would, get emotional.
Okay, it's okay.
That my life would be different, and that I would become somebody. And so, those prayers go before you. And, literally, I think my life is just an evolution of her original prayers and her sacrifices.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's wonderful. Okay, where am I? Okay, what do you think is the most significant barrier to females in leadership?
Thinking that we have to compete with the men, and that we have to make up for something that men have that we may not have. I think coming into leadership young. So I was a VP at the age of 30. I probably was the youngest VP around the healthcare movement when I first walked in. And the way that I would be greeted was by my age and my gender. You know, wow, you know, you're a really young woman, or you don't even look old enough to be a VP, or, you know, always being met with opposition in that particular realm. So I feel that women bring just as much value to the table as any man, if not more. And when you put us together, and we have an equal respect for one another, there isn't anything that can't be accomplished. So, you know, women understanding how important that is and how pivotal that is, that learning how to be confident and bold in who you are and what you bring to the table. I listened to Denise's interview too that she did last week, I think it was, and she had said, you know, sometimes I'm sitting in these rooms and I realize that these people ain't that smart. Sometimes I be sitting in these rooms and be like, these people are not that smart. Like my thoughts are 3 or 4 steps ahead of where their thoughts are, yet they have these bigger titles or they have these extra letters at the end of their name that I don't have, but I already know the answer to all the questions that they're asking. A lot of women sit at tables like that and they don't open their mouths up because they don't think what they have to say or the thoughts that they have are as bold or as smart as the people sitting at the table. But I challenge you to open your mouth and to speak your truth and to present your thoughts, because you'd be surprised how you could be the smartest one in the room.
It's true. And you know, you're right. It's people have this image of what a vice president looks like or what a president looks, and it's like, but have you changed that image lately? Because it's obviously not what you're thinking it is. So I get you there. Absolutely. So along the whole barriers and obstacles, what would you say are some significant obstacles you've had to overcome to get where you are today?
Well, I definitely was a teen mom, so I was repeating that cycle that my mom had experienced. So overcoming that, I think, was a major obstacle. Transitioning between schools was a major obstacle. Moving between Western Mass and the Midwest, talk about a culture shock. And I didn't know growing up in Springfield, Massachusetts, that there truly was a racial divide or issues in different places. But when I went to Indiana, I had a rude awakening of the seriousness of that and how shielded I had been growing up in a diverse community and going to diverse schools. Not that it didn't exist exactly where we were, but it just looked a little bit different. And I was shielded from it in some way, shape, or form. So other barriers that I would say I had to face would be dealing with the people that, you know, count you out or try to silence you or don't. A lot of times people question or doubt my intelligence. And then once they spend time with me, they're convinced that I'm a pretty smart cookie, that I know my stuff. If I'm in a particular room, I'm there for a reason and I know my stuff. But it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that you don't have to fight past that, those perceptions people have about you. And again, I know that people meet me first based on the way that I look and what they see in terms of what I look young. Thanks, Mom, for the genes, for the young looking genes. I'm a Latina, you know, and I'm a woman. Whether people want to admit it or not, there are some people that still hold on to very old traditional concepts when it comes to what leaders should look like. And sometimes I don't meet that mold. So those are barriers that I have to face. And depending on the day, determines whether I have to experience those or not.
And would you say there were times you've experienced racism or prejudice on the job?
Currently at my current job, I don't feel like I feel that with my team currently. But overall, I definitely feel like I felt certain things along the way, but sometimes you know, and sometimes you don't know. And I was talking to somebody the other day because I'm searching for a new multifamily home out in the Boston area. And I had an experience when going through one of the houses. So even though that's not on my job, that's still something that I do. One of the showing realtors I felt was acting kind of weird towards me, right? So I'm going to see this house and I have a letter that says that this house can be paid off within 7 to 14 days. So I'm qualified to see it. You couldn't even see it unless you had documentation to prove that you could get in there. So I go to see this house and it's the little things like, oh, can you make sure you close the door behind you? And the person comes around me and shuts the door behind me. you asked me to close the door. I'm going to close the door. It's the middle of the winter. Why wouldn't I close the door? And then the person says to me, to my husband too, because I brought my family to see this house. Oh, can you tell her to come on? Because I want us to all go together. I'm the buyer.
Yeah.
The only thing that differentiated us was a very big gap in our ages and our race. And so the question becomes, do you have some implicit bias here? Is this like, what is this? So the person that I was speaking to was like, Jasmine, if it feels like it and you know it, it's it. Why are you always trying to make excuses to cover up for people? You know, there clearly was something there that's an issue. And you've been seeing houses since, you know, you were 22 and you've never had an experience like that. So I would say it's alive and well. And it all depends on the situation and the scenario. And sometimes you know when it's happening and sometimes you don't. And sometimes you excuse it.
And we always hope the best for people, or that they, you know, have best interests, but it's often shattered very quickly, unfortunately. So a simple question, what encourages you?
I think what the future potentially holds, the opportunity to create something new, what that new could look like, what it could bring, and that I'm just getting started. So if this is what I've done thus far, I can only imagine what's to come.
Great. And I think I said it, but what is your motto?
My motto? Oh, if you're gonna change it, should make sense.
You can change it up if you want. It's all good.
Yeah, that would definitely be my motto. You know, in the work that I do in all the spaces, you know, it should make two types of sense if you're going to change. It should make logical sense and it should make financial sense as well when it comes to my financial business, because we all have a choice to change or not change. And a lot of us choose not to change and stay in situations that are less than ideal for us. And they could be totally different if we would just have a different lens or be willing to do something new or try something different and be okay that you might be scared in the process. I think every time I have to do something new, there's always some trepidation that comes with it, but you still do it anyways, because you know, you want to know what's on the other side. And many times when I'm fearful or scared of changing or nervous about a certain change, it's your natural body reaction as well. Your brain is telling you to stay safe, and change doesn't feel safe. But then if you live long enough, you see like, well, when I changed this way, this was the great outcome. Or when I did that, this was the great outcome. Or I was apprehensive to go to grad school, but when I went, I loved it. And when I went to go volunteer for this thing and it was a new area, I really enjoyed that too. Or I met great people. So being open to the opportunities and what could happen really is what I live by.
Great. And I have to give you props for adding a pun to that motto. That's just...
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. That's great.
It fit perfectly.
It really does. What are 3 events that helped shape your life?
3 events. What would be 3 big events that shaped my life? I think one of the biggest.
More, but, you know.
What'd you say?
There's probably more, but what would you say are the 3 top ones? So.
Right. I would say one event was when my mom got married to my stepdad, which is my dad. I think that was a big pivotal transition in our life. Again, I was raised by a single mom for a number of years, and then she ended up getting married, and a good husband really found her, and he found a good thing in her too. But you know, the amount of stability that brought into our home, and the spiritual aspect as well, because my stepdad is a pastor, and he was so consistent, and he was so loving. And, you know, I felt like I grew up like surviving, not really thriving. And like now in my 30s, I'm now like putting away like the surviving stuff and like really thriving. But when my stepdad came into our lives, I really felt like he showed me something that I had never seen, like the way that he loved my mother. He loved her and loves her unconditionally, and has always been consistent with his faith, and has never wavered with it. I think that was certainly something that has molded and shaped me, especially when it comes to my own spiritual walk, and being that consistent father figure. And also he loves me and my siblings and my kids as though we share the same DNA, and you can't tell him we don't share the same DNA. in his mind, we all share the same DNA. I am his daughter. My kids are his grandkids, and nobody can tell him anything about that. So I think that was definitely a big experience that molded my life, and also is molding my children's life as well. Another event that I would say has really impacted me and shaped and molded me is, I would say, being married. You know, I've been married since I was 19, I want to say. And we grew up together, right? He was my high school sweetheart, my first in so many different things. And surviving the relationship, being able to last this long, and being like winning, like we're winning every day, we're winning in our marriage, because I don't come from a long line of people actually staying married. I actually have a lot of people that their marriages don't last. So being that relationship that has been together since we were so young, we were literally kids. I met my husband when I was 13. So literally growing up together and evolving, and then building businesses together and raising awesome dynamic children together. And now, you know, that marriage being a light for other people, that they can make it, that they can last, that you can do this thing together as a team. I think that's something that has also shaped me through my life, and the support that I've gotten from my husband as well. He's down for whatever crazy ideas I typically have, and I'm not really that crazy. I make calculated risks, but he's supportive of those, right? And it speaks volumes when you have a partner that's on the same page with you and willing to invest and take risks together. And the last thing that I would say has shaped and influenced me, I would say, is the opportunities that I've had here at Caring Health Center. You know, being able to truly live out the words that I always said that I wanted to live out, being able to change lanes without apology, and being able to be successful while changing lanes. You know, Caring Health Center really showed me that that was possible, because I spent 11 years at United Technologies, and then I've come here and I'm approaching the 6-year mark, and then being able to launch my business. You know, those experiences, they build you up and they show you what's possible. And to truly be given the opportunity, because I know a lot of people probably in the healthcare realm were looking at my boss like she was nuts. Like, you're bringing this girl from corporate America, she doesn't have any healthcare experience, and you're going to put her second in command. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And sometimes you're like, so, you know, that I think opened a lot of doors as well, and continues to open a lot of doors that wouldn't have been open. So I really feel like my destiny is always orchestrated ahead of me, and I'm kind of just walking into it and finding it and trying to fulfill it. So I think those would be my 3 biggest things for me to say that have shaped and molded me.
That's awesome. We have a comment from Yesenia Lopez, and she just wants to tell you that she loves your attitude and thank you for sharing and inspiring. So that's great.
Thank you.
So along the lines of inspiration, what advice would you give women who are first generation college students and who may be struggling in their educational journey? And I know you've been there, so you probably have some good advice for them.
Yes. So I've been a first generation college student, and so has my husband. So what I would say is, there is nothing that you cannot do if you just stay consistent and make the small steps. So if there's a course that is extremely challenging to you, wake up a little bit earlier. If you've got to get up at 5 a.m. to study just a little bit longer in that particular course, make the sacrifice and do what needs to be done so that you can get to walk across that threshold of graduation. In addition, it's only temporary. Whatever you're feeling, if you could hold on long enough to let those feelings subside, you'll realize that it doesn't last very long. You know, typically when we're having down moments, when we're in a certain class or pursuing a certain subject, it's really temporary. And speaking life to your own mind in terms of, yeah, this course might be challenging, but I am graduating. I am walking across that stage. For instance, myself, when I left Ithaca College, I had my son February 6th, the day before my birthday. And I went to school 2 weeks later, and I finished out that semester. Typically, and again, my story isn't for everybody, and that story may not be their story, but for me, I was walking across that threshold, and in my mind, nobody was telling me that I was graduating late. I was graduating the exact semester that I was supposed to be graduating. I didn't care that I had to transfer between schools. I didn't care that I had to do a community college semester in between going to Bay Path. It didn't matter. In my mind, when I'm locked and loaded on a decision, there is nothing that's going to keep me from that decision. And so if people have that in their mindset, like you lock and load on the goal that you want to achieve and you do whatever it takes to make it happen. If that means getting up early, staying up late. And back then I was going to Bay Path. My son's school was in Springfield. I was working simultaneously while I was in undergrad, wrapping up. I would drive all the way. I was living in Enfield, driving to Springfield to drop my kid off, driving to Windsor Locks to go clock in hours because I was working part-time at United Technologies. Then I would leave there and come to class in Long Meadow. And then I would go back to Windsor Locks in between and then come back and get my kid and then go back to Enfield. When I tell you there was nothing getting in my way, there was nothing getting in my way. I pulled on my community. I pulled on, they say it takes a village to raise a child. My son, it took a village to raise him. I had a schedule. I had different people in the village that would help me on certain days. Some days I had late classes, so the daycare closed at 5:30, 6 o'clock. I had to go tug on people and say, hey, this semester, can you support me Tuesdays and Thursdays? I have class till 9. Would you be able to watch my son between that time frame? So I had sister-in-laws that pulled in. I'd had relative-in-laws that pulled in to make it happen. So if you need help, you better ask for help. If you need to wake up early, you need to wake up early. If you got to stay up late, you need to stay up late, because the one thing that is always going to keep moving is time. So either you're going to get to the goal and be who you said you were going to be on the schedule you said, or the time is going to come and you're going to miss the opportunity, or you're going to still get to that time frame and just not have the degree.
Oh, that's great advice, especially because it makes sense, because you talk about, these late classes. I know 6 to 10 at Bay Path, like who has a class till 10 o'clock at night, right? But you found a way, and that's it. It's all about, like you said, consistency. So appreciate that. What would you say it means to give back to your community?
For me, I feel like giving back is sharing your experiences, your knowledge, and information with people, as well as giving back financially. So my husband and I are big givers. We don't promote the way that we give or how we give, but trust and believe we're always giving in some way, shape, or form, and we're always teaching others those same principles. In addition, when it comes to giving back to our community, my husband and I have volunteered in so many different ways ever since we've been together and before. My husband is also a preacher's kid too. So naturally, giving back to our community has been bred into us since we were young. And so we live that out, and we do it in non-traditional ways and in very private ways. I know we live in a generation now where everybody needs to see everything that you're doing. And when you're giving to someone in need, you need to record it in Snapchat. No. Giving truly from the heart, when you want the most credit, and the credit isn't a natural credit, you give in secret and you give in private, and you let that speak for itself, and it will ripple out ahead of you. So, that would be the big thing I say about, giving. And, I volunteered in so many different spaces, and I volunteer in so many different spaces. So I don't try to keep my knowledge only for the place that I work at. Life is more than just driving back and forth to work in your car. There's still so much more to it. So on my platform, J&E for Jasmine Naylor Enterprise, I'm constantly pouring into the community that I'm a part of for J&E and giving away tons of information that I wish I had when I was a real estate investor, just starting out at the age of 22. So there's nothing really that's off limits that I don't share. And the reward is seeing the lives that you're impacting in so many different ways.
Great. All right. I would like to switch gears and ask you to speak to us about your journey of becoming a speaker and coach.
So the day it was born was, I was in between that class, this Think and Grow Rich class, and it was like a 7 or 9 week class, and my husband and I were doing, and I think it changed both of us. I think we've never been the same ever since then. So, the class had asked you some very deep questions about who you are and what your gifts are and what your gifts were meant to do and create, and literally had you put a plan together. And I actually have the plan in a Google document, and it tells you actually very specific questions, like what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to sacrifice? What will you stay committed to? What is it specifically that you want to do? And so I wrote it out of what I wanted to do. I wanted to transform lives. I wanted to use my voice to do that. I wanted to impact my community. And I put dates on things. I put goals on it, and I prayed about it. And literally, I felt like this was the area I was supposed to go in. And so I began to work and move into that particular area. So literally, it was a light bulb moment, just waking up one day because of this course. And speaking and coaching was birthed out of that course and out of that exercise of, well, what more does Jasmine have besides being an executive or being an investor? And literally, that is how I, started speaking and coaching. So, and let me just say, speaking and coaching is interesting because if people know me, if you've known me for a long time, I really never cared to speak. And I was always somebody that did things behind the scenes. Like I would be the busybody that could orchestrate events, that could run people's financial offices, whether it was ministry or not ministry. And that was it. I was content. I would just do that behind the scenes and be okay. Being raised in the church, they would always try to give you the mic. And so then at one point I was made the announcer. I didn't want to be the announcer. I never wanted to speak in church. And then I was put on the announcements, and typically people would only hold the role for like 1 year. And then it was like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 years, 6. I'm like, when am I not going to do the announcements anymore? I never even asked to do the announcements. So anyways, in between the same time frame, folks would start to tell me like, Jasmine, I really enjoy hearing you speak. And I'm just speaking the announcements, and be like, you're so articulate and you're so eloquent. And so I feel like that was a seed that was sowing well in advance before I chose that particular lane. And when I decided to choose that lane, or the lane chose me, I feel like I was prepped and equipped for it just because of the church announcements. And that is how the speaking and coaching business was birthed, and literally just using the skills that I have and what I know and letting that go forward. And of course, it takes a lot of elbow grease and building a platform and breaking barriers. And a lot of my barriers, I would say too, are my own. Like I didn't like to be in the front of things. I didn't like to be in the limelight. So literally like putting a website out, I think that petrified me like you wouldn't believe. I'm a part of a group, a mastermind group. And I was like, there's something about this web. I just feel scared to publish this website. Like this means that people can see me, and this means that, that it's real. And then when I did my first Money Monday, the same thing, I was petrified, shaking in my boots. The first time I did my first class, I got a rash from my ankle to my forehead. Literally, I was having that much of a reaction to these new experiences. But that's what I would say.
But look at you now. You got through it, right? It's great.
Definitely.
We actually have a question. Corrine Alvarado wants to know if you can share that document. She'd love to use it.
Oh, definitely. I'll look, girl, remind me in my DMs on my IG page, and I'll look to find the template for you to give it to you. I won't give you my answers because those are
right.
the templates. But and definitely it's in the book called Think and Grow Rich. So you can find it in there if you read it.
Great.
But I'll definitely send it to you too.
Okay, so let's see. Can you tell us how, and I think this is very relevant for you, how has the current pandemic affected and impacted your work?
So my work originally, let's talk about healthcare, and then let's also talk about the speaking and coaching business. So speaking and coaching, so I originally was building my platform on speaking, but speaking in person. So literally right when I was ready to go out, and literally I had a bunch of gigs booked right when the pandemic hit and the state of emergency was called in a number of places. So literally I thought that was going to be my main lane, was speaking at places for pay. Mm-hmm. And then the pandemic hits, and you can't really go places to speak, right? The world pivoted. And so I ended up saying, okay, well, if I can't go out and speak, what I can do is I can do courses. Like I can speak for my own self and do my own courses. And so I pivoted into the courses, which is the courses and the coaching. And so that's how the courses were birthed. It wasn't on purpose. I had no intention to do the courses. I was just planning to go all around the world and speak and use my voice. And then the pandemic happened and I pivoted lanes. And in that pivot, I wasn't formally trained to do courses, but again, you never know what's in you until you begin to go digging and searching. So the first course that I did it with absolutely no training. I put together like a 35 or 40 page workbook. I created exercises from scratch. Like literally all this stuff was coming out that I didn't even know was there or existed within me. So that's literally how the coaching and the speaking business has emerged. And then people started reaching out as I built those things. People started recruiting me to do virtual speaking gigs. Now, when it comes to the executive leadership role that I hold at my current position in the community health center, COVID has changed everything, right? We used to just be a 100% face-to-face business, and now we're about a 50-50 split on the medical side, almost 100% virtual side on the BH side. We have VAX clinics. We implemented so many workflows and protocols. We've used technology in ways we've never used it before. We've pivoted gracefully in this pandemic, and the workspace looks totally different. There's dividers, there's barriers, you wear masks, you name it. The workspace has totally changed.
Definitely. Oh my goodness, I bet. And I understand about the speaking gigs because in my other hat, I'm the president of Women in Philanthropy of Western Mass, and we had to change from having speaker breakfasts where people would come and have breakfast and hear wonderful speakers like yourself to, oh gosh, let's do a Zoom every month and hope people come. So yeah. I totally understand, but you know what? It worked, and actually it turned into a wonderful experience. So I'm glad you had that same experience as well. So it's great. If you had to start over from scratch, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
Ooh, what would I do differently? That's a hard one.
Right.
I do different. Oh, I would bank on myself more than I did in my younger years. So there were opportunities that I could have had, or I could have taken, or I could have led, but I had self-doubt. And I would let the opportunity pass. I would have the thought that I'd want to do X, Y, or Z, but then I just didn't have enough confidence to actually go for it. So if I could do things over, I would actually step out at an even younger age in different areas, in different fields, because who knows where those different opportunities would have led and what could have happened.
Great, but I bet you'll always stay consistent no matter what.
Yeah. Yes.
That's
and
great.
Now I do it scared anyways.
That's true. Out of all your achievements and accolades, which achievement in your life are you the most proud of? I know we've talked about a few of these already, but now you have to pick just one.
You know what's funny? The achievement or accolade that I want to give you, it literally has nothing to do with my career, and it has nothing to do with what I've done in my life. Quite honestly, the greatest thing that I've ever done, I feel for me, that I knew was the hardest thing I ever did, was nursing my daughter for 2 years and being an employee and a community volunteer as well. I don't know about anybody else and the other women on the line, but literally the achievements in the professional realm, I feel like we're a lot of times equipped for those, but I don't think I was equipped to be a nursing mom for 2 years on top of working a swing shift for those full 2 years, going back and forth between day shifts and night shifts back when I was holding a certain position at United Technologies. And I always tell people when they say, what's the hardest thing you did in your life? This is the thing that I tell them. The hardest thing I ever did in my life was the thing that you don't think was the hardest thing to do. Just being attached to a child and them having so many needs. Like I would say, my daughter nursed like every hour and a half. It took forever for her to get to the 3-hour window. So all the nursing mothers out there, and if you haven't nursed, no shade to you at all. We all do what's best and appropriate for us. But by far the hardest thing I've ever done, but the most satisfying, gratifying, and rewarding, and had allowed me to create a bond that is so distinct was through that experience.
That's wonderful.
You weren't expecting that, were you?
No, you know what? I love it. It proves you're so down to earth too, and amongst all your accomplishments. So really, truly, that's a wonderful answer. And one last question before I hand it over to Lydia to do Q&A. Where do you envision yourself in 10 years? I'm very excited to hear the answer to this because you've already done so much.
Oh, I'm retiring from working for other people. And my goal is that it will be as soon as possible, that I don't got to get to 10 years in order to make that happen. So, my husband and I, we have a plan. We're implementing that plan on a daily basis. And between all of us here too, I just accepted a new position out in the Boston area. So I'm excited about that. I hope and plan that will be my last rodeo when it comes to working for other people. I'm really excited about that opportunity. community. So, you know, I plan to be a real estate investor to run J&E because it's a passion project and because I have still so many things to impact in the world, but be able to buy my freedom, my time freedom. You know, I love working for other companies, but I also believe I can make millions of bucks for myself too, the same way I make millions for every company that I've worked for. So that is what I plan to do. So 10 years, honey, I'm trying to do it within the next 2 to 5, really 2, really want to know. I want 2 from the time I start the new position. And by the way, that's the agreement. That person knows my plans too. So it's not like Jasmine accepting this new position and she ain't even staying a long time. And then in defense of where I'm going, they said, well, Jasmine, maybe you'll love it so much you'll stay longer. Maybe I will. We shall see.
Damn, that's great. Congratulations on the new gig. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. This has been really, really, truly outstanding. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And I'll turn it back over to Lydia to handle any Q&A.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kelly. And oh my God, Jasmine, I swear every time I'm in the room with you, I could just feel the energy. And we're not in the same room, but this is how vibrant, how energetic you are. It's just amazing. I could just feel everything that you were saying. And one of the things that the word that you use a lot is consistency, which I totally agree with you. Even, you know, I live by it with my work ethic and with everything that I do. So even if you're not the smartest person in the room, at times, if you're consistent and you show up, you'll win. So thank you for that. So we're gonna see if we have any questions from the audience.
Thank you, Lydia. And thank you, Kelly. I've enjoyed this. This was fun. So in the audience, don't be shy. Drop some questions.
Yeah, ask some questions. We have some time left.
Mm-hmm. No question is bad.
No questions, yes, Jasmine, but I'll continue to just chat a little bit and just say that, you know, I knew you were a financial person. That first trip that we took to Washington and we were on that train ride and I was talking something about spending and you were, your answers to me were like, oh, wow, like, you know, they always stick there, so.
Definitely. Remember we went to the Holocaust Museum and the African American Museum?
Yes,
We went to both of those museums. Those were such awesome experiences that we went through, weren't they? But they were awesome.
Yeah. Let's see if we have any questions again. Nope, no questions. So the audience is being a little quiet today. I'm sure that they're just taking everything in. Yep, we have something coming in. All right, so for the women that are starting to work towards moving away from corporate and to entrepreneurship in their early 40s, what advice do you have for them? We feel like we are racing the clock. So
the first thing that I will tell you is you will always feel like you're racing against the clock if you're always looking at the clock. So for those of you that are in your 40s, be okay that this is your time to shine. Be okay that, hey, 40 is just a number, right? Well, don't they say like the 40 is a new 30, the 50 is a new 40, the 30 is a new 20? You know, that's exactly the mindset you should have. Don't feel like you've missed out on something, because the moment you start thinking that you missed a window of opportunity or that your business isn't being birthed in the right season or at the right time is the moment that you're going to make decisions that aren't always in your best interest. So if you believe that you are right on time, all the time, exactly where you need to be, when you need to be there, things will flourish for you. And again, that consistency is key. The internet is your best friend. Like everything is on the internet. Everything is on YouTube University, as I call it. Your network, you have an inner network and an outer network. Everything that you need, you're already connected to. You just might not see it in your inner network. It might be in the outer network. So negotiate, conversate, network. You have no idea how connected you really are. And once you start walking in that boldly and not thinking that, like, imagine you walking around thinking that you're already in lack. No, you're not in lack. You're abundant. You're amazing. You already have so much going for you. You want to pivot from corporate to entrepreneurship. You know, you can do it. Why can't you do it? Like, there is no difference between you and I, or Lydia and I, and Kelly and you. You know, anybody can do these things. It's just being consistent, doing your research, and being faithful to that dream that you have.
Thank you, Jasmine. We do have a couple now rolling in. So one is from Carolyn Burgos, who says, I see a lot of my past attitude in you, but I have been struggling with mental health and it's been hard for me to be consistent and just have a positive attitude. Do you have any advice to sort of keep going?
So for me, I am big on praying, fasting, and reading my Bible, and listening to worship music. That keeps me grounded, especially because you have to have something that centralizes you. And for me, that is my faith. So that's not to say I don't have days where I'm not down and out, or I don't have weeks where I don't feel like I'm accomplishing according to the schedule that I want to accomplish to. A lot of times what I had to do is modify my schedule because my schedule was unrealistic. So because it was unrealistic, it was never going to be achievable. So I had to even learn myself in entrepreneurship that I want to achieve this goal, but I have to break it down into smaller bite sizes. They say the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So stop trying to eat 10 at one time, just eat one bite at a time. And over time, you'll consume the whole thing. So when it comes to truly grounding yourself and having more positive days than negative days, or helping get yourself out of those funks, those are my go-to: prayer, fasting, reading the word of God, and worshiping. By all means, those have kept me, have held me. And when I told you a little bit about those crazy experiences in my workspaces, by all means, that was exactly what helped me keep my grace and my poise through some of those really off the wall and incredibly traumatic experiences that I've had in certain realms. And that's helped me be who I am. So I can't not mention that to you. So by all means, do those things if you're interested in it.
Thank you. The next question you pretty much answer, which is what keeps you going on your hard days. So I would say pretty much
what I said.
Yeah, and then there's a comment stating you are amazing from Lydia Flores. We have another question. What is your strategy of overcoming or dealing with fear of your greatness or capabilities, especially when you like being in the background?
Yeah. So for me, again, I take it back to my faith, which is, what was I divinely designed to do? And am I going against my divine design by keeping myself in a bottle and not letting the full and authentic me come out and shine, and accepting the fact that it is uncomfortable, it will be uncomfortable. But if we're not doing things that are uncomfortable in our lives, the good uncomfortableness, then we are allowing complacency to have a space in our life. And my motto is, I want to learn until the day I die. I want to evolve until the last breath that I take. I want to be continually becoming something more than I am today, God willing.
Amazing. I think that, oh no, we have more. Okay, what is your financial advice, especially tips on saving for a college student living or small budgets for minimum wage or part-time positions?
Oh girl, I got tons of advice for you. So back when I was in college, right, I had this baby on my hip in between. I had these small budgets and these part-time jobs. It would be one to understand that you need to have a budget no matter how much money you make, no matter where you are in your life. So back then, when I was getting $536 in cash assistance from the government and my food stamps, and then piecemealing my work study jobs together and my internships, I had a budget. I knew exactly what was going to my cell phone. I knew exactly what was going to go to cover rent, and I knew exactly how much I had extra. The thing that I wish I knew today that I now wish I knew then that I now know today is, everybody is an economic engine in their own way, and you have the opportunity to create money in so many dynamic and unique ways. Now, with your laptop, with your smartphones, you can create courses, you can sell dinners, you can babysit kids, you can do Uber, you can do Instacarting. There is so much opportunity. The question is, do we really want what we say we want? And are we willing to sacrifice at the level it takes to get where we want to get? So Doesn't matter what you make, you can always make more. In addition, you can go on my page. I have a live that I did called Make More Money. If you're on a job, how to get that next promotion, what differentiates you from other people, what leaders are looking for in the next leader, how you show up and show out every single day that will make ways for you in positions. Like for instance, I became the VP, not because I applied for the job, right? My name spoke for me before I came because my boss got to see me, how I operated in my academics. I was working after hours for United Technologies as well. So occasionally I would have to step out the class to take customer calls from around the world to support them with their aerospace needs. She got to see me do that. We got to work on projects together. It was those things that spoke for me and opened up financial doors in my future. So show up consistently everywhere that you are, and go watch that live on my page, on my Instagram page, Jasmine Naylor Enterprise. And there's tons of nuggets in there for you as well.
Okay, advice on balancing being a mom and working.
I'm still working on that. So what I would say about that is it is a daily exercise that you have to go into. And some days I succeed and some days I fail. What I tell people too, or what I've learned, or I've come to learn, is there are going to be some times that you're just not going to feel successful, that you've done it perfectly. And it's because we have an improper, perfect image of what that looks like for us. So one, it's understanding that that's the truth. Because for instance, when I'm launching a class for my business, I'm in it. I've got to put extra hours into it. I've got to focus and hone in on that. And so I had to be okay with, this week, I just don't have the time that I have normal weeks to do things. In addition, my Saturdays are for my family. And so I put a boundary on my Saturdays. The kids even know it. Saturday is family day. So even if I failed, quote unquote, during my week, we all know Saturday is the foundation day. That is the day that we're going to be together. We're going to go out and eat together. We're going to do some type of activity together. It's going to be about all of us. So that really has been a saving grace, but I still struggle on the day to day. Did I pay enough attention to my kids? Was I looking at my phone too much? Because my daughter will tell me that, and my kids will tell me, you're on your phone too much. You're looking at your phone too much. You're not listening to me. So I've been learning how to catch myself more and more, and I'm getting better day and day, but my goalpost is Saturdays.
Okay, as you evolve in your career, how do you reshape or create healthy boundaries so that you don't serve out on an empty cup?
We could do a whole live on this by itself. So I'm going to try to keep it as short and concise as possible. If you know that you are giving too much in certain spaces, you have to be okay checking yourself and implementing the boundary to draw back from that space. So that is something that my husband and I had to do. And it was the hardest thing that we have ever done, which is to remove ourselves from a space that felt entitled or obligated to what we were serving for so long. And so we had to come to that mindset or that ideology ourselves. Like, hold on, I can't keep putting 20 or 30 hours a week of my time over here when I'm trying to build this business, or I'm trying to be successful in this other area, or because I want to get a little bit more diversified in where I'm donating my time. I can't do it all, because you can't do it all. And so you really have to look at the 24 hours you get in a day and say, am I really spending it where I should spend it? And you're going to have to deal with the guilt as well. So a lot of guilt came from that exercise. However, once you get out of that, you realize, hold on a second, I made the right choice. Because I made that choice, I'm able to be more present here, or I'm able to now branch out and do this over there. So be okay understanding that you might have been put somewhere for a season, and when the season is over, it may be hard to separate from it, but know that if you want to get to the next season, you got to get out of this season. And those boundaries are critical to that. And boundaries is probably one of the most significant things you can learn to do, because most of the time, it's not other people that you need to put boundaries around, it's yourself. You have to self-regulate your boundaries, because nobody can make you do anything that you don't want to do, because you are in charge of you. So if you build a strong muscle of boundaries as to why are you doing things, what is your North Star? Like, why do I do this? What is leading me to do this? You literally will be healthier and happier and more fulfilled by implementing that.
All right, and this will be our last question. Where does your motivation come from and how do you keep a balance? And Jasmine, you are phenomenal.
Thank you. Hey, Demetrius. So for me, I think my motivation comes from just realizing the sky is really the limit. And really, I'm just learning how to be me, right? So, like everything you see, like I've learned how to be comfortable in my own skin, learned how to understand that, there is so much more for all of us, not only for me. And I just want it all. I want all that is for me with my name on it. I want it all. And I'm showing up every day with an expectation that I'm getting a little bit more each and every day in any area that I touch, and not compromising who I am in order to get that as well, and staying true to my identity.
Wow. Again, Jasmine, thank you. Today has been amazing. You just always bring it, I tell you. So thank you for the time and for pouring out yourself to us today and being so genuine with your conversation and open. Definitely a lot to think about. We're coming to the end of the session. If you want to say anything else, that's a goodbye. Here's your time.
Absolutely. I thank you so much for inviting me, Lydia, and for Kelly for a phenomenal interview. I think everybody that showed up as well, I don't think it, not that you sacrifice your time to spend lunch with me, drinking your tea or your coffee or whatever it is you're drinking. I really appreciate that. And this has really been a great time. And if you want to connect with me, I'm on IG and Facebook. You can look me up, Jasmine Naylor Enterprise, and I'm down to earth. You can DM me. I will DM you back until I get so big that I have to have people DM me, but I ain't big yet like that. So this has been great. So thank you so much for everybody that came on in.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to everyone. Thank you, Kelly. And stay tuned for details for our next session. Next Wednesday, the 24th, we will have Judge Danielle Williams, who will be speaking to us. So, till next week. Thank you, everyone.
Here. Bye.
Bye-bye.